So coming up this weekend, we do have quite a bit of MMA. We have the LFA 223 card as well as the UFC card in Qatar, headlined by Hooker versus Sarukian, which I have done a prediction video on my main channel called Artem MMA. And in this one, I'm going to kind of go over some LFA 223 fights. Now, this isn't the full main card. This isn't even the full card, to be honest with you guys. I just haven't really been like crazy motivated to make videos about MMA and watch MMA like I expected I would be, to be honest with you, and that is kind of why I am not really going to be covering all too much in this video. So let's just kind of get into it with the main event. We have Lewis Francischinelli taking on Jonathan Piersma, and this is an interesting one because it's going to be a test to see how good Lewis Francischinelli actually is. He is 5-0. He does have 5 wins by knockout in round number 1, and I would say so far he's looked very good. Victor Quicks is a pretty decent win to have, in my opinion. He's a massive guy for the weight class, and so is Lewis. He's 6'6" at 170 pounds. This guy really could be like a pretty next up prospect if he can show decent takedown defense against someone like Piersma, because let's be honest, we don't really know anything about Francischinelli's takedown defense so far. Jonathan Piersma is a wrestler. The thing about Piersma is he actually is a guy that has been knocking on the door of the UFC for quite a while, in my opinion. Now, he actually did go on a pretty good win streak after his unfortunate knockout loss to Devin Smith. Beat a couple of undefeated guys, including Jack Congdon, who actually fought on the Contender Series in 2025. He got the road to UFC opportunity, but had to run into, in my opinion, one of the better prospects in the world right now, Samanda Muradov. But he has bounced back again with another undefeated win. So if history does repeat itself, we might just see him beat another undefeated guy here. But the thing about Piersma is he is a wrestler for the most part. And once he does get his takedowns, he's not like a crazy, aggressive, crazy, dangerous guy once the fight is down to the ground. He's not just going to hammer ground and pound like someone like Islam Makhachev is capable of doing, or just kind of go out there and try and get quick submissions like we see guys with the arm triangle chokes, the arm bars, even the crucifix position we see a lot of people try to go for. Piersma, he is very content with his control and just kind of winning based on control, which is actually going to be pretty difficult for Lewis to deal with, in my opinion, because it usually is on failed submission attempts. We do see a lot of guys get opportunities to stand back up, and Piersma's probably not going to give Lewis that opportunity. So it really does come down to, can Lewis knock out Piersma, and can he knock him out quickly? And with a low confidence pick, I am actually going to say yes. I am picking Lewis here. He's 6'6" with an 84-inch reach. He's crazy aggressive, which might go against him in this fight. Maybe it's not going to work out for him. But the thing about Piersma is we have seen him knocked out before. Now, yes, it was by a spinning wheel kick, which does suck. But just in general, he doesn't respond to strikes all that well. He doesn't seem like a guy that has a very solid chin. He doesn't seem like a guy that has very solid striking to deal with someone that's going to be aggressive, that's going to come out there very, very over aggressive, almost like in the style of Islam. No, that what's that guy from Germany that's like hyped up right now in the UFC? I completely forgot his name, unfortunately. But I think that Lewis Franchinelli could be that next kind of up and coming 6'6". Islam Dulatov, up and coming striker. I think that he could be quite good if he can get past Piersma in this fight. And then the next one in the co-main event, we actually have a fight between two guys on the Ultimate Fighter, or were on the Ultimate Fighter last year, between Diego Banchini and Jeff Creighton. Jeff Creighton, of course, did win a couple of fights, or one fight, I should say, on the show against Andreas Binder, and then he lost to Cezinando, who then went on to go into the finals. Bianchini also actually lost to Cezinando, who went on to beat Creighton and then go on into the finals. Jeff Creighton, in my opinion, is just the more well-rounded fighter out of the two here. Jeff Creighton, he's a good wrestler, he's a good striker, he's decent grappling, but in my opinion, like, that submission threat isn't really something I think about at all when it comes down to Jeff Creighton's fights. And I would also say that striking danger is also not really something I think about when I think about Jeff Creighton's fights either. He just kind of is a guy that's good at everything. He can out-wrestle you, he can out-grapple you, and he can out-strike you. And he's got good wins. He beat Joey Davis for Bellator, who was an up-and-coming prospect at that time. He beat James Nakashima, who used to fight, of course, for one championship. And then also, aside from that, he did, of course, get that win on the Ultimate Fighter against Binder. He's taking on Bianchini, who is a grappler. This guy is definitely more of a BJJ kind of style fighter out of anything. He doesn't really have too much to offer on the feet, in my opinion. He's got one knockout win, but, you know, that was a pretty long time ago by stoppage in 2016. And then aside from that, of course, he does kind of get his wins with that grappling, with that BJJ. That is quite solid, especially at 170 pounds. The problem is, I don't think that he has the wrestling to be able to keep the fight on the feet if Creighton's trying to take him down. And yes, he can work from guard, he can work from his back. It's not an ideal position for anyone to be put in, especially Bianchini, who is a guy that probably will be able to gas himself out trying to throw up these subs. Bianchini is not a cardio guy like I consider Jeff Creighton to have good cardio to push a hard 3 rounds. Bianchini can't do that, in my opinion, so I'm picking Creighton to win this fight by decision, but I could see maybe a late finish in round 2 or 3 by TKO if Bianchini does truly death gas in this fight. And now we have Kyle Pafal taking on Steve Collins. This is two up-and-coming guys. I would consider Pafal to be a prospect at this point, 26 years old. Very, very good win streak now, but he's taken on the 5-0 Collins, who I would consider to have a little bit of hype behind him. He's coming off a viral, it wasn't viral, but it was pretty brutal slam knockout victory against Gabriel Brown. And then aside from that, really, I would consider him to be mostly a boxer, if anything. Like, yes, he does wrestle, and yes, he can wrestle quite effectively. When I do watch his fights, it does look like he's trying to box a lot from the orthodox stance, relying on that right hand to deal with most of his power. And I do worry some moments he can be quite low volume. He doesn't really seem like a guy that quite has the experience needed to learn how to win the minutes, learn how to win the rounds when the fights are close. Like you can see against Carlton Sneeve, I think he kind of made it a little bit too close when he probably could have just thrown more volume. He was the better striker. In that fight, he was the better boxer. And it's the same situation here against Kyle Pafal, in my opinion. Now, yes, Pafal's on a good win streak, but it's not against very good competition. Mostly against guys that are making their debuts. And he did recently beat a guy called Kevin Carrier in the LFA, but that was mostly a wrestling performance in which he just kind of controlled him in mount, really in half guard. I would even say most of it was in. And I think against Collins, you know, Collins is 5'8" at this weight class. I do believe Collins probably could make 145. The thing is, he has never fought at 145 as a pro, but he has fought at 145 as an amateur in 2021. So maybe I could see Collins go down to 145. I don't know if that's just too hard of a weight cut for him, but I think he is a small guy for this weight class. I just don't believe, though, that Collins is going to get taken down and controlled in this fight. And if anything, I think Collins is the better striker out of the two. So I think Collins can keep it on the feet and outbox Pafal here, which I do think is just the better striker. So I'm picking Collins in this fight here. And then aside from that, I am going to cover Sheila Ladd versus Joe Taylor. In this fight here against Joe Taylor, Sheila Ladd is just going to probably go out there and use his wrestling and his grappling. Ladd is actually the brother of Aspen Ladd, the woman that the ear absolutely hates. Probably some of the worst striking accuracy the world has ever seen. And fortunately for Ladd, he hasn't quite got those same genetics. But I do consider him to be quite good. He is 10-0 as an amateur, made his professional debut at the start of this year, and that was actually quite hyped up. A lot of people were excited to see that. And so far, so good. He's beaten a couple of guys that do have a little bit more experience than him in the professional ranks, that is. And I also think against Joe Taylor, this is a very good matchup for him. Joe Taylor does have some name value, if you could kind of call it anything. He is a former kickboxer, professional kickboxer. I believe his father was a professional kickboxer as well, but he has been quite inactive over the last few years, and now he's nearly 42 years old. He just got submitted in the first round. Was it the first round by Sumter? It was in 45 seconds. And I don't think that proves well for someone like Sheila Ladd, who is a guy that does fight, in my opinion, quite similarly to one of his training partners in Anthony Hernandez, Fluffy Hernandez, where he is going to be aggressive in the grappling, he's going to be aggressive in the wrestling, he's just going to go out there and he's going to shoot a takedown in the first 30 seconds, and I don't think 42-year-old Joe Taylor is going to be able to defend it and defend that grappling. So give me Ladd to win by submission. I think the first professional submission he will have ever had, in fact, maybe one of the first submissions he's ever had in his entire career, and I think we're going to see Ladd go out there and submit Joe Taylor in the first round, and it's going to be a pretty good stepping stone for him, and maybe they fast track him to the Contender Series in 2026. To my knowledge, Sheila Ladd's actually quite young still. So maybe he is a 2026 Contender Series guy. If he's able to, beat Joe Taylor, he'll be 4-0. He can fight two more times quite quickly. We might see him be 6-0 by the time that Dana White's Contender Series rolls around. So yeah, that could be something that could potentially happen. And aside from that, I don't really have anything else to cover. I'll be honest with you. I will mention though, Gable Stevenson. Say what you want about him, definitely is a lot of controversy in the background of that guy, especially if you're hanging out with John Jones. But he is going to be fighting this weekend. He fights for the Anthony Pettis FC show, which is also on UFC Fight Pass. He fights a guy that's 2-1 as a pro. So just once again, someone with a little bit of experience, he probably will win it, to be honest. And we'll see if Gable Stevenson does indeed make his UFC debut in 2026. Another thing is Cage Warriors 197 is on. I didn't really bother looking into this fight card because it does look like a lot of squash matches, if I'm just going to be honest. You got your 8-0 American prospect against just a random guy from Brazil that even I'm not too familiar with. Aiden Lee's fun. He fights all the time, but he's fighting Damon Wilson, who should get back another win. And then, it just kind of looks like one of those cards which the prospects are fighting guys which they should beat. So I didn't really look into it too much, but there are some very good Cage Warriors cards coming up, if I do say so myself. I don't want to make the video too much longer, but Tugarev is pretty fun. He's awesome. He did actually just get a massive upset as well against Power. And Emil Brown, this guy has got pretty big power in his feet too. I saw his KO win over this guy, it must have been. And also against, but this guy sucks. Escarag, I don't think you guys understand how terrible this guy is at fighting. But anyways, I will see you guys in the next one.